Hi, this is Superboot. This is going to be a little tutorial where I will show you how to do bump mapping and basic texturing with materials in Blender. Now, for this video, I will be breaking it up into 3 parts. The first part we will do here, involving a model that is pre-made. I made this before, and we're going to basically make it match this color scheme on the reference picture. Now, before we begin, first I would like to stress that you need to already know basic material construction in Blender. So in edit mode, we have seams marked here, and you can mark seams by holding Shift and clicking between vertices, like so, or by going down here to Edge Select and selecting the edges that you want to have marked. Now, when you have them marked, you need to go to Edge and then Mark Seam to mark a seam. Now ensure that it is fully enclosed, like here, with these nostrils, before you complete your seam line. Otherwise, you will not have a closed seam. To remove a seam, select the edges and click Clear Seam under Edges in Edit Mode. So now you have your model and its seams marked out. So what you want to do next is you want to unwrap it. Now, to unwrap it, you want to first have either the texture image editor or UV editor open to see how your UV map comes out. For this purpose, I'm going to use image editor. Now in edit mode, press A to select every single face on the model. Then you want to go down to UV, click Unwrap. Now, nothing has appeared on here yet, and that's because we have it set to view mode. What we want is it in paint mode. And there you see your UV map is laid out. You can edit your UV map to make it fit whatever size you want by going to UV editor. To select certain parts of the UV map, you want to go and stay in face selection mode in edit mode. Click the face of the area in the UV map you want to move, and then simply click L, and it will select everything within that scene. So for example here, we have selected the top beak of the Triceratops, and it will display the top beak UV map in the UV editor. Now, if you are happy with the shape, but not where it's located, this is fine. You can press A in the UV editor, and it will select all the vertices that you need. And you can go back to this screen, press A to select all of them, and you'll notice that the other UV map is now visible, so you know where you can and cannot place things. So with this area selected, we're going to press G to grab the selection, and now we can move it around freely in this space and put it wherever we want. Now that this model is unwrapped, we're going to move on to the next stage. As you can see, I have the area already unwrapped. Now, this image cannot be modified because we don't actually have any materials. If I try and click this space with this texture, we get an error appear, or nothing happens, because this model has no textures. To correct this, we first need to add materials to the model. To do so, go over to your editor type, properties, go down to this area with the circle. This is your material properties. Select material properties, and then select New. Now we have a material, but the model is still not assigned, so what we need to do is be in edit mode and select all the faces that we want this material to go onto. In this case, I'm going to make this the skin texture. Select L onto the faces that you want to use. Go to your material and select Assign. Now, because there's only one material, it's applied to the whole model at the moment. So we're going to change that by adding a second material by clicking this plus icon. And again, we have two materials. Now, this can get confusing, having nothing but a list that says material 1, 2, 3. So we're going to rename it all. We're going to rename material to skin, and then this material to horns. Now, selecting the skin material, you can play with all kinds of things here. So adjust it to however you want. I add a little bit of subsurface for a little bit of translucency, and I do leave some specular because skin has a natural shine to it. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to just shove this colour on the entire model for now. Select L for the area of the skin, click Assign, then go to Horns, and select all the horns by just simply clicking L. Whilst in face edit mode, you can do this. And then with horns selected in materials and still in edit mode, click Assign, and you'll notice that the horns are now white. And you can do the same with everything else. So that's assigning materials. Next stage, after having materials assigned, is actually applying texture. Now the model has its own base texture already, but we don't see it yet. In order to see this, we need to do a little bit of work. Now that we have the model all covered with materials and all assigned by using seams, we can now start texturing it. Now I'm going to stick with a flat color for now, because I'm going to show you a couple of tricks and tips that will help you bypass a lot of the fiddling around with texturing. Now to start with, we will pick whatever colour we want. In this case, I'm just going to pick purple because that's the colour of the character. And in texture paint mode, for both, we want in image editor, we want to be selecting paint mode. And in the main view window, we want texture paint mode. Now if I click this, oh dear, it says missing textures are detected. That's because we have materials, but no texture. So to do this, you want to click down here where it says new. You can play around with the size, as long as it's a nice round number like 10, 0, 24 or 2, 0, 40, it will work fine. For this example, we're just going to call this skin, and we're going to keep it black. So now we have this all in black, but it's not assigned to anything yet, so we need to fix that. So in order to do so, we will click skin in the materials. Base color we will swap with image texture here. And as you can see, it goes black. We'll just set it to skin. So this means that when we start painting on here in just a moment, it will start appearing on the model. So if I go woo, like this, it adds the color. So you can do painting in multiple ways. The easiest way, however, I find is by, again, using the face select tool in edit mode. Click L, so that we're just selecting this area of the head. Then whilst this is still selected, we go to paint mode in texture paint. Select the fill tool. And with fill tool selected, we pick our color. Again, I'm just going to pick a random color of purple. And then we just click like so, and it fills the entire area that the material belongs to. Now, if you want to do it with the rest, it's rather simple. So, with the correct faces selected, in this case, the mouth, and we have the mouth area here, we might as well select all of our base colors to be the correct texture. So by choosing skin, we will be able to modify the model correctly. So these faces are now selected. We want to go to texture paint, and then you will have this little icon here, which is paint mask. If you click this, everything that we don't want colouring in will be blocked out, so we won't be able to actually do anything to it. It's just this spot here that we have selected with L. So we just use the paint bucket tool, fill that in, and there you go. And again, we're going to do this with the beak. We'll select both the beaks, the lower and the upper, select beak material, and then texture paint, and then you'll see everything but the beak is grayed out, so you won't be able to spill any colour in areas that you don't want. And then we'll just play around with the little slider, get the fill tool, and then do that again. So you just do this over and over with every single piece. So I'm selecting the horns next. Select horns material, texture paint. We'll make these white. And as you can see, everything but the horns is grayed out. Fill tool. And there we go. And there you go. You've completely coloured in your model using just material slots. So you have these nice, crisp, clear edges. The next stage of the model making process would be to add some detail to this. But we're going to skip over that for a second. We're going to move on to the next step, which will be adding the bump map. So now we need to add some bump maps. Now in order to add the bump maps, first you need to be looking in the main window, have it set to texture paint, then select skin, and you'll see here there's a blank square, that's a skin, and then a plus icon. Now you want to click this plus icon, then go down and select bump map. Now, like I said in a previous video, most projects will require a normal map instead. So if you're doing video game work, a normal map is usually the standard. But by doing a bump map, you don't have to worry because you can convert it later to a normal map. So click bump. So it'll say skin bump, so it will be assigned to the skin, but we can apply it to all of these later. Ensure that it's the same size and that it's not black, so keep it as the standard grey or a kind of whitish colour. And now you'll see nothing's really changed. So we need to add some colour first. So staying in texture paint, we'll go to white. Zoom in a bit. It's better to work close up when doing bump maps. Now, when you're doing your bump map, be aware that your lighter colour raises the model's texture, so it'll make it look higher, and having it dark, like black, will make it deeper. So first we'll do an example of the darker areas. So if I switch to this, if I use black, it's going to be very intense, and you'll see in a moment. Look how sharp that is. But it gives you the illusion that this has been sculpted deeper, when really it's not. It's just a piece of texture that plays around with your eyes, really, makes it look like it's sculpted. You can do this in the eye socket area as well, like so. Maybe we'll do something here, just as a little bit of an indication for a skull. Now, as you see, when I try and paint over this area, it goes black. That's because this area is not assigned to this material. So if you want to add some texture to your beak area, for example, we need to click beak, and you'll see it has no bump map. Now, in order to add a bump map, you can do it one of two ways. You can either do it the way that we just did, or you can do it by adding the exact same bump map to every single stage of the model using the shader editor, as you can see down at the bottom of the screen. Click shader editor, and you will see that this area, skin, is shown with all the settings you have over in the material area. But we're on beak, and it has no bump map. So if I select skin, you'll see that there are two areas here. You can select these and copy them, go to beak, and paste them. Now all you need to do is move your normal here click and drag to meet the normal on this side. And then the normal map will be applied. It's that easy. So selecting this, the beak, in texture paint, click skin bump, and you'll see it's exactly the same texture you were using for the rest of the head. But now you can actually bump map on the beak as well, and transfer between both sides without any back and forth clicking, because they're both using the exact same bump map now. So you can apply this to other areas as well. Just copy and paste into the shader area. So if I click mouth, you'll see, it doesn't have the bump map assigned. You just Control V, copy and paste, click normal, drag it, normal, and now we can use that as well. If I go into mouth, skin bump, and just painting some bump map. Now we can add some height, because we've added some depth. To add height, you need to be in a lighter colour, and just paint, and you can see now this area looks lifted. It's really, really that simple. This thing still looks quite flat, even though we have all this texture now. The colours, they just don't seem to pop, because they're all one solid colour. So what we're going to do is we're going to just add some little texture here and there using the height maps, and then I'm going to show you a neat trick you can do in the likes of Photoshop, and I'm pretty sure it will work in things like GIMP as well, so don't worry if you don't have Photoshop. As long as it has features for you to copy, paste, and overlay things, it'll work fine. So we're just going to do some rough texture like so, nothing fancy. So now we have this model with bump mapping. It already looks much better, but it needs that extra little something. So first we need to make sure that we can save our images, because otherwise when we edit this image in the program, we don't have anything to work with outside the program. So first you'll see there's a little asterisk next to image. Click save as, and then save it somewhere. So in this case I'm just going to make a new folder, which you probably can't see, and I'm just going to call this project, and save skin bump. And then you'll also need to open skin, save this in the same folder, and then we're ready to move on to the next step, which will require either Photoshop or something similar that you can edit your images in. Now that we have our textures, we need to open them in a program. So I'm using Adobe Photoshop. So we first have our base texture, and then we also have our skin bump. Now we need to use the cut tool to Control C, and then Control V in your base texture. So you'll be overlaying this over the top. Now you want to use the Magic Wand tool, select all the grey, and then just delete it. Now all that bump map is now overlaid exactly as it should be on the original texture. Now depending on what type of effect you want, you can use either multiply, or overlay, or any other one of these kind of options you can use. Now for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to use overlay. And I don't really want white on the model, so I'm going to just highlight the beak colour and take that. And then I'm going to just fill in these white areas like so, just to make it look a little more in keeping. Now this can take me a while, but I'm not going to do it all, so we're just going to do this one base texture. Merge this down, and then just save. We don't need to do anything else, and can move right back into Blender. Now we have Blender open again, But as you'll see, nothing really appears to have changed, and that's because we haven't reloaded the image yet. So by clicking Image in the image editor, we just want to click Reload, and it will automatically detect that we've changed the image and apply it to the model. And as you can see, it looks a lot better already, even if there are areas that are white that shouldn't be. This just speeds up the process of texturing your model and making it look nicer. We could work on this model for hours, make it really detailed, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to say that we're done. And I hope you've learned something from watching this video. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop a comment down below. And please subscribe if you want to find more content like this. And I'll see you next time. Ta-ra.